This trip was the first big test for me off of the GLP-1 medication, and I am not gonna lie, the scale went up. I just ate to my heart's content. So it's really no surprise that the scale is up 12 pounds. Hi everyone, my name is Mima. I used to be obese. I lost all of the weight through a combination of GLP-1 medication, a whole foods diet, and weightlifting. I now train as an endurance cyclist, and I have been off of GLP-1 medication for almost 3 months now. I am back from my holiday vacation, which was a 2.5-week trip to the Philippines and Singapore, and yeah, there is a lot that I want to tell you guys. But first, as you can see, I am in my bike gear, well, my bib and my undershirt, because it is the warmest day of the week. We are at the low 10s, I should say. I think the highest today is going to be 13 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, because one of the things that I promised myself, or I refused to do when I moved to the US, was learn Fahrenheit, because it did not make any sense to me. So metric is king over the imperial system. What can I say? That might be a hot take, but the rest of the world doesn't seem to think so. Anyway, I am excited. It's going to be my first bike ride of the year. I am behind on my training for Unbound Gravel. If you guys did not know, I got picked in the Unbound Gravel 100-mile lottery. So I am now training for a 100-mile race, my first ever race, ever. I have never, ever done a bike race before. So yeah, I have to keep up. I have to start doing this really seriously because it's 100 miles. Yeah. Anyway, that is not what this video is about. This video is about what happened on my trip to Southeast Asia in terms of weight, food, being off of GLP-1, all of that good stuff. And there's a lot that we need to unpack. For those who have not been here before, I have been off of GLP-1 medication for about 3 months now. So at the entirety of this trip, I was not on GLP-1 medication. I am still off of GLP-1 medication. And if you are interested to learn more about how I got off of the medication, why that happened, how that happened, you can check out this video right here. And if you are interested in learning more about my entire GLP-1 journey, how I lost 65 pounds, the habits I built, the routines, the systems that I built, you can check out this video right here. Now, this trip was the first big test for me off of the GLP-1 medication. And I am not gonna lie, the scale went up. I was recording my weight, not every day, because just schedule-wise, sometimes I would just wake up and head to where we needed to be off that day. So it was out of sight, out of mind sometimes. But yes, the times that I did weigh, the highest weight that I ever recorded on that trip was 128 pounds. That is 12 pounds higher than the last weight that I recorded before we went on our trip, which was 116 pounds. Although that is a little bit below where I am comfortable with, which is between 117 and 120 pounds. Now, just because the scale went up does not mean that this story is the meds, the GLP-1 stopped, and then I'm doomed to regain the 65 pounds that I lost off of GLP-1. That is not this story. So if that is the kind of narrative that you're looking for, this is not it. This is not that video, because I have been back home for 4 days now and the scale is actually trending down. I am back to weighing every day and the scale is looking to be trending down. But there's still definitely a lot to say. I want to break down what the scale increase likely means, and I want to tell you guys what I'm not doing. No crash dieting, and just share with you my simple reset to get back to my baseline of 117 to 120 pounds. So if you're up for that narrative and that story, get your favorite low calorie to 0 calorie drink. I have my homemade iced brown sugar shaken espresso, whatever the Starbucks drink is. This is my version of it. It is below 90 calories because I make it with Truvia Sweet Complete brown sugar, which is a sugar substitute. Actually, one of my staples now. If you have access to it, Please do try it. I love it. It's amazing. Also great for people who have a aversion or kind of a sensitivity to fake or artificial sweeteners. So try that out. But anyway, get your drinks because we are going to break this down. So let's start first with the basic information about our trip to give you guys some background, some context of what our trip actually entailed. We went to Southeast Asia, as I mentioned at the top of this video. We flew to Singapore from New York City, and then we went to the Philippines after Singapore, and then we spent a big chunk of our time in the Philippines, and then we went back to Singapore to kind of like end our trip there for a few days, spend New Year's Eve there, and then we headed back to New York. These were incredibly long flights, especially flights from New York to Singapore and back. They ranged from 16 to 19 hours. Our flight from New York to Singapore was actually, I think, almost 19 hours. So not easy travel, I would say. And in the Philippines, we actually moved around a lot. We were in a lot of car rides. We had 2 other domestic flights in the Philippines. And then we had some really busy tour days where we were out for like 8 to 10 hours a day. But also we balanced that out with some chill days where we just had nothing on our itinerary and people were just like either going shopping, going to the spa, hanging out by the beach, all that good stuff. But in general, it was a very, very busy time. There was a lot of movement, a lot of moving around, and a lot of shuffling from one place to another. But despite how busy we were and how much we were just moving from one place to another, I was still able to keep up with my movement minimums. Thanks to all of our tours and all of our moving around, I averaged about 16,500 steps a day during our vacation. I also lifted 9 out of the 17 days that we were in Singapore and the Philippines. So I was still pretty active, like almost as active as I am here at home, which has not been the case for me during other vacations that we've had of this length and complexity. I don't know. It was a very, very activity filled vacation. But of course, there is no vacation without this one thing, the food. And I know you guys are just really curious to hear about how I fared with eating and just managing my diet on the trip. I will say first though that most of the food that we ate on the trip were mostly whole foods. That's just par for the course when you're in an island country like the Philippines, my home country, and when you're someone like me who loves seafood, wherever I am in the world, you know that I will gravitate towards seafood in an island country, right? So we had a lot of grilled fresh seafood, a lot of grilled fish, grilled tuna, different kinds of the grilled fish that I was eating growing up, grilled shrimp, had so many steamed crabs, and of course, my favorite, the fresh fruits that I cannot get here in the US, that I can't even bring to the US whenever I go visit the Philippines because it's not allowed. So yes, we ate primarily, like a majority of our food we ate was primarily whole foods because of what I now gravitate towards, and also the companions that we were with, my friends that we were with on this trip also loved this kind of foods. It was just what people were gravitating towards, which was what I was thankful for. But the main difference was that I didn't track. I did buy like a portable travel food scale. I had it in my suitcase, but I never took it out. We also had some really, really nice treats, and just generally we ate a lot. I'm just gonna say that out loud. We ate a lot because I am in my home country, in my home cuisine, with access to foods that I usually will not have access to, or at least the quality and the freshness is just not something that I have access to here in the United States. I'm just gonna be completely honest here. I literally stuffed myself with my favorite fruits in the Philippines. Like, I would stand and talk to people, talk to my family who's there, my friends who's there, and just eat bananas, pineapple, mangoes, pomelo, like would peel, talk to people, and I would only realize later on like this pile of banana peels and pomelo peels and mango peels that I had already eaten because I would just stuff myself with fresh fruits because I don't have access to this in the United States. And well, we do have bananas here, but the bananas here are just incomparable in terms of taste and flavor to the amazing bananas that we have in the Philippines. So I did not give a flying F about how much fruit I ate, because I just knew the moment that I left the Philippines, I would not have access to this kind of fruit anymore. So I just ate to my heart's content, especially on the fruit side. And when it comes to treats, Filipino cuisine has so many lovely like rice-based treats. Most of them I can't make here at home. So every time that they were available when we were on our trip, I would have a piece or two of treat. I never ate any kind of like Western treat in the Philippines or even in Singapore when we were there, because I have access to that here in the United States, like croissants and those like sweet breads and all that stuff, like sweet pastries, muffins, cakes, all that stuff. That's just, I stayed away from that. A lot of what I ate when I was in Singapore and the Philippines were like suman. And in the case of Singapore, like a piece of kaya toast. Kaya is kind of like a coconut jam that Singapore is famous for. And I would have that with my morning coffee every day, which is like not what I do. Like, I don't even have a morning coffee on a regular basis, so it's not really that I do that kind of stuff now after I like overhauled my entire life while I was on GLP-1 medication for 15 months. But it was just an opportunity for me to kind of savor those flavors and those treats that I know I will not have access to when I'm back here in the United States. So, with that in mind, like, I didn't track, I didn't restrict myself. I just really enjoyed all of the special foods, the special treats that, again, I keep saying this, but again, I know I will no longer have access to the moment that I leave the Southeast Asian region. So of course, with that in mind, it was natural for us to have like, or especially for me to have like bigger portions than what I usually have when I'm here at home and tracking my food meticulously. So it's really no surprise that the scale is up 12 pounds, 128 pounds now from 116 right before we went on our trip. And that's 8 pounds heavier than my baseline, which I mentioned is like between 117 to 120. Like, that's where I normally go back and forth in, what I'm comfortable with and what I know is kind of like the weight that I want to stay at. Now, what does this increase usually mean? Well, I just want to put it out there that two things can be true at once. One is that I just simply spent my time on vacation in a surplus. Like, I'm not going to deny that. I have just waxed poetic about the food that I ate, the fruits that I basically shoved down my throat while I was in the Philippines. And yes, even with whole foods, you can absolutely eat above maintenance if your portions are bigger. And I just said that my portions were bigger because we ate a lot more and we ate a lot more frequently. We also had no control over our food because we weren't cooking. So I'm sure the restaurants and the resorts that we were at, they prepared the food with more oil, with more butter. And of course we had, like I mentioned, a lot of treats when we were there. So while I did say that we ate a majority of the food that we ate were whole foods are not magic. The math is still mathing and the law of thermodynamics still applies. And two, travel changes what the scale does. Like, it's why I mentioned at the top of the video how long our flights were from Singapore to New York to Singapore, because that matters and that affects your body. The different sleep while you're on travel affects your body. All that sodium also affects your body. Different meal timings, the frequency of the meals, right? Like I said, alcohol for some people. I had a lot of alcohol on my trip. It's not a lot for some people, but it's a lot for me. Like, I probably had like a drink every other day while we were there. So yeah, that affected my body a lot. And even like the inflammation from like all of the walking that we did and the lifts that I did while I was there also affected my body, because all that can increase water retention and can make the scale spike. Now, I do want to say that my body did not love the heat of Southeast Asia. So even though we spent a majority of our trip in the Philippines, we actually bookended that trip with Singapore just because of the flights that we were taking from the east coast of the US. So we spent like the first couple of days in Southeast Asia, we spent 40 hours, sort of like a layover in Singapore before we headed to the Philippines. And that gave us an opportunity to actually go out and see the city, for like 24 hours before we headed to the Philippines. And after like that layover day that we had, when we got back to our airport hotel to get ready for our flight to the Philippines, oh my God, my calves and my feet were swollen after like that day of walking around Singapore. Just walking around. It wasn't really anything heavy. It was just leisurely walking. But my body just did not respond well to the heat. The next day when I weighed, the scale was up by like 3 pounds. And then for the next few days, my calves and my feet were still swollen. And those days, like the scale like went up little by little each day. But even with that experience and that story, I'm not gonna claim like that scale is like, it's all water. And I'm also not gonna claim that it's all fat gain, right? Like it's just numerically, mathematically impossible for me to have gained like 3 to 4 pounds of fat in the span of like 3 days. Like I would have had to eat, I don't know, like 11,000 calories worth of food for 3 days, which is impossible for me. So yeah, it's not all water, it's not all fat gain, but I'm just gonna say this, my inputs changed during the trip. So of course the scale changed. And this is where I want to be very careful because I do not want this video to become like ammunition for people who claim that you will regain the weight when you get off of GLP-1. A lot of people treat like an increase in the scale number as proof that you can't maintain without GLP-1 medication, and I absolutely do not agree with that framing. My obesity doctor doesn't agree with that framing. And also just scientifically and experience-wise, anecdotally with a lot of people, you know, that framing doesn't hold as sort of like a general consensus, right? What I'm showing you and what I am telling you is that maintaining your weight loss is a skill. And the skill is not never see the scale increase or never gain weight. It is notice early when changes that you don't like are happening and then course correct quickly. And again, I want to say this, 16,500 steps a day, 9 out of the 17 vacation days weightlifting, that's not a collapse. That's not moving backwards. That is evidence, that is proof that my identity now as someone who is fit and healthy and is an athlete, and the systems I have built with that identity, it is proof that they are holding. And they are holding even if my intakes, my inputs, they drifted upward in a situation that is unusual, is special, and is unlikely to happen in that way ever again. Again, our main meals were genuinely very good, very much part of like the structure that I have built for myself. Primarily whole foods, built up of grilled seafood, lots of fresh fruit, with the main difference being volume. We just really ate a lot. We really enjoyed the food that we had access to when we were in the Philippines and Singapore. Our portions were bigger. We had more meals, more snacks, more access to street food along the way. And the treats that we had were absolutely worth it. I do not regret a single treat that I had when I was on vacation. And I am not going to do that thing where I'm going to pretend that that wasn't part of the vacation. It was. The eating, that was part of the vacation, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And again, I absolutely do not regret it. The point here that I'm trying to make is that that was vacation behavior. That was sort of in that vacation bubble. It is not my baseline. That is not what I'm going home to. Now that we are back to real life, I am not crash dieting. I am not adding a bunch of cardio to make up for it. And I am not trying to lose a massive amount of weight in 3 days. Doing that is how people swing from one extreme to another. I am keeping my normal lifting schedule and my training schedule for Unbound Gravel 100 miles in May this year. I've actually already been to 3 lifting sessions this week. And as I mentioned, you see me now, I am on my way after recording this video to get on the bike for my first bike ride of the year and my first training session for Unbound Gravel of the year. I am keeping my non-negotiables when it comes to food, primarily whole foods, protein and fiber forward in every meal. I am ensuring that I am getting good sleep, keeping up with good sleep hygiene, at least 7 hours of sleep every night, which has been challenging given the time zone changes, but I am working on it. And I am also going to continue weighing daily because that has been part of my structure. I am used to it, I am comfortable with it, and it gives me the data that I need to make adjustments down the line when the trends that I am working towards is not what is actually happening. But then, what do I expect in this return to baseline? Well, I expect that the first thing to normalize is going to be water and digestion. Especially the digestion part. My stomach is still adapting to being back home with my normal foods. And I know that can take several days, a week, depending on how much sodium I'm eating, the water that I'm drinking, how much water I'm drinking, and just all of this routine and hopefully getting back to my normal sleep cycle. Then, of course, I expect that trend line to follow my habits and my routines. I already know that I am trending down from 128 pounds at my highest during vacation to today at 122 pounds. That's already a 6-pound difference in the last 4 days since being back home. That's also how I know that my routines, my systems, my habits, they're all going to hold. So yes, I quit GLP-1, I went on a long vacation, I ate more than usual, and the scale went up. But the most important part of that is that my current lifestyle now, my lifestyle of being an athlete and someone who eats primarily whole foods, who sleeps well, that lifestyle did not disappear while I was on vacation and the moment that I got back home. On vacation, I moved like an active person. And again, now that I'm not on vacation and back home, I return to structure immediately, no lag time. Going on vacation, that is not the problem. It is letting vacation become your baseline. And it's very clear that I am absolutely not doing that. This trip was such a good test for me because it had everything that normally throws people off track: travel, restaurant meals, treats, abnormal sleeping times, abnormal bowel movements, less structure around food, more access to good food. I'm gonna be super honest, those things definitely threw past me off track, and then I will not be able to get back to my habits when I got home. But not this time. Not this time, because my habits did not collapse, especially the habits around movement. That is a lifestyle shift that I spent over 14 months building while I was on GLP-1. It is clearly now working that I am off of GLP-1s. And that is how I know I will not regain the 65 pounds that I lost even without the medication. So thank you so much for spending your precious time with me today. If you are also navigating life off of GLP-1 medication, please do consider subscribing to this channel. Here, we are really about realistic maintenance and not about perfection. And I'm also more than happy to speak to you guys if you have any questions about being off of the medication or, my back to baseline reset. My handle on Instagram is right here. Please feel free to DM me anytime. I will see you in the next video. Till then, happy riding.